privilege to introduce you to my friend and fellow bald-head refugee, Bill Bennett. Dr. William J. Bennett is one of America's most important, influential, and respected voices on cultural, political, and education issues. A native of Brooklyn, New York, South. He actually studied philosophy and earned a Bachelor of Arts degree at Williams College, a Doctor of Philosophy degree at the University of Texas, and a Juris Doctorate degree from Harvard University. He's an award-winning professor in academia, having taught at Boston University and the University of Texas and Harvard. He has held 2 different cabinet-level positions, first serving as the Secretary of Education under Ronald Reagan and the nation's first drug czar under President George H.W. Bush. Dr. Bennett is a prolific writer. He's authored more than 24 books, including 2 New York Times #1 sellers and 2 of the most successful books of the 1990s. And he is the host of the #7 ranked nationally syndicated radio show, Morning in America. Dr. Bennett's latest book is entitled, Is College Worth It? If you haven't read that, you need to read that book. His 3-volume set on the history of the United States entitled America, the Last Best Hope, has been adopted for school use in the state of Indiana and the city of New York. And they're currently being adopted by other school systems around the country. With his experience in 2 presidential cabinets, along with his writings and speeches and thousands of media appearances, Bennett has an extraordinary influence on America's political and social landscape. He is a recipient of more than 30 honorary degrees. And with thanks to last year's tax cuts passed by our governor and the General Assembly, Bill and Elaine are now full-time North Carolina residents. On a more personal note, Bill has been very generous and supportive of my endeavors as your chairman, offering his sage advice and acting as a sounding board during walks on East Beach with Sonny Boy, his golden retriever. And I welcome you to join me in giving a warm applause to the delegate from Brunswick County, Dr. William J. Bennett.
Great to be with you. Elaine and I are thrilled to be here, thrilled to be North Carolinians in name and legally, and yeah, we will behave ourselves. Don't throw us back to Maryland, Lord. Why'd you leave Maryland? It's like the last line of that old joke, which I won't tell you the whole thing, it wouldn't be appropriate, but the last line is, I've enjoyed as much of this as I can stand. And that's why we got out. Claude is my friend and my chairman and my grocer. And if you look at me, you can see which role I prefer him most. We take full advantage of him in every way. What a great pleasure to be with you. What a great pleasure to be among the stars here in North Carolina. I was thinking as Tom Tillis came in, I had a chance to chat with him. He said, you know, I saw you in the airport years ago. He said, and I was kind of a groupie. I didn't want to go up to you and bother you. You looked like you were a bit busy, but I'm glad to shake your hand today. I said, you were a groupie of mine. I said, you win this race, you will be the king of groupies. You will have more following you than you can imagine. But don't feel the pressure. It's just the future of the United States. Control of the U.S. Senate and the election in 2016. Congratulations to you, sir. We are all behind you. That's how it works. It's democracy. It is a do-it-yourself enterprise, and it falls to the great state of North Carolina to be the linchpin in this election. And remember, Hagen does not rhyme with Reagan. So why would one leave Maryland? Well, recently they raised their taxes, they passed gay marriage, they legalized marijuana. As the guy said when he was leaving England, he said some of these things may be okay. They weren't when I was a kid, they're now permissible. I'm leaving before they make it compulsory. There's some other reasons. Pat McCrory signed into law a historic overhaul of the North Carolina tax code, 7.75 to 5.75 to 6.2% in April of 2014, while the state cut unemployment benefits and reined in unemployment debt. In energy, you've seen the way. We signed into law the Energy Modernization Act of 2014, part of which lifts the ban on fracking in the state. I don't know if Pat McCrory's done it, but I was impressed with even the Democrat governor of Colorado stood at a press conference and drank a glass of fracking fluid in front of the cameras just to prove that this is not a harmful substance. The head of the EPA has pointed out that there has never been damage to the environment from fracking, and it can make a difference in this country. You can look at the studies and they're pretty clear. Given the state of this economy, you can recover the entire economy, all the losses of the U.S. economy, almost entirely on the back of energy. If you let this country do what it is geared to do, you can also lower dependence on foreign nations and on foreign oil, and there are lots of good reasons to do that. Education reform is on its way in this state, thanks to the governor and what Dan Forrest is up to. You're talking about school choice, you're talking about more charters, you're talking about accountability. So God bless you, keep the work up. Let us new Carolina residents, Elaine and I, be of whatever help we can. And we're in South Brooklyn, North Carolina, also known as Brunswick County. It's a great we'll bring real hot dogs to go those grits. All right. I don't want to take too long because it's a real treat to hear Bobby Jindal, and you're about to get that treat. I'm also mindful of Bobby Jindal's exhortation to the party, don't be the stupid party. So I'll try to honor that either. He said, don't talk in slogans either, talk in thoughtful recommendations, and I will try to do that as well. We have to be a party of solutions, Governor Jindal said, and he should know he has made those solutions and made them real. Not just bumper sticker slogans, but real detailed policy solutions. I couldn't agree more, but if a slogan or two slips through, it's just it's easy to remember that way. My favorite one of the year, I'll just start with that one, is keep your doctor, change your senator. That's particularly in this environment, I think. Let me quote Anton Chekhov, the great Russian playwright, because Bobby Jindal says you don't just make a case for yourself by making a case against the other guy. And he's right. Chekhov said you don't become a saint through other people's sins. And that's indeed true. Boy, it is tempting to look at that litany of sins and go through a few of them and think, you got to be able to do better than that. You remember the Declaration of Independence. You remember our founders talking about the history of the present King of Great Britain. It's a history of repeated injuries and usurpations. Pretty good language. It still applies. Well, you don't become a saint through other people's sins, but here are a few. Let's start with foreign policy. I don't think we can draw final conclusions on the Bo Bergdahl situation, but we know for sure it is a mess. It may be a catastrophe. It may be a disgrace and a disaster. We shall see. But it is clear this administration had no grasp on what it was doing, the significance of what it was doing, and the reaction that it would create. The VA scandals, the Veterans Affairs, this goes to the heart of it. This goes to the heart where attention is, where the people to whom this administration pays attention. If these have been people who have been Obama community organizers, but they have had to wait on such long lines as our veterans. When you release the Taliban Dream Team back to the Bergdahl situation for Bo Bergdahl, do you really understand the implications of what you were doing? It's been argued by some that we really need a person who has served actively in the military to sit either as President of the United States or as Vice President. True, but this administration is sure making a case for it. Well, we're told we don't leave a man behind, even if he turns out to be guilty, even if he deserted, which looks pretty obvious, if he abandoned this country, even if he collaborated with the enemy, we get our man. We don't leave him there, we bring him back, and then we seek justice. Would have been nice to have remembered that at the time of Benghazi, wouldn't it? That would have been quite relevant there. I don't have to go through the rest. You know the rest. It's painful. It's a painful litany. It's hard to listen to. It's hard to endure. It's hard to suffer under. The IRS targeting groups. The gun running into Mexico, fast and furious. Not enforcing federal drug laws and granting clemency for drug users. This is an area of special interest of mine. So Mr. Bennett here, who was the U.S. Attorney when I was the first drug czar. Crazy title. Great job, crazy title, drug czar. Only laugh line I had in that job was that I could refer to my lovely wife Elaine, whom we met yesterday, as Zarling. And our then two little boys as the Zardines. Not Zardines any longer. One is 6'3" and All-American lacrosse player, the other 6'6" and a first lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps. I don't get the applause for that, Mrs. Bennett does. It's one of the great philosophical questions of all time. Who raises Marines? There's a simple answer. Mothers raise Marines. That's who makes them. Anyway, the litany goes on. Not enforcing these drug laws. Colorado and Washington will be a mistake. They are a mistake. They will come crashing to the ground. It's starting to come crashing to the ground now. Do not be tempted by this notion of all this revenue that drug money is going to produce. It will bring more disaster, and it will cost the state money. This is no holiday. This is no giggle weed. This is a deadly path we are on. Just bear this in mind. The marijuana that was used in the late 60s, some of you might have used it, tried it, inhaled it with some of the passive smoke, is 1/5 the power of the marijuana that's available today. The THC, the tetrahydrocannabinol content, is 5 times greater. This stuff is getting into the hands of kids, it's getting into the hands of teenagers, and it's going to have a horrible effect. It won't kill people in the way that cocaine will, or the way that heroin can, but it will addict people, and it will get them into a life and lifestyle that can truly be detrimental to their own lives, their families, and the state. Jerry Brown, Democrat governor of California, with whom I agree, I guess, twice a year, put it well. He burst out on TV and he said, how the heck am I supposed to produce a productive state and meet the challenges of California if 10 to 15% of my population is buzzed all the time? That's a very good question. And let's bear that in mind. This administration seems to want to ignore it. Immigration laws are not being enforced. Missile defense has taken a serious hit in Poland, where the president has visited recently. These are our great allies. That red line in Syria was not a red line. It didn't mean anything. The Arab Spring disaster. We say these things, we root for one team, the other team wins, we don't know what to do. We lead from behind. Our foreign policy is incoherent. Don't dare move on Ukraine, Mr. Putin. Mr. Putin moves on Ukraine. We have lost Iraq and we have lost Afghanistan, thanks to President Obama. The EPA power plants are now going to be According to the EPA, the power plants are now going to be shut down. There is a war on coal. We have serious budget problems, trillion-dollar debt, and this budget in Congress, this budget in the Senate cannot get passed. Work has been loosened, work requirements have been loosened for welfare, and as you know, food stamps are exploding. The President has ordered his Justice Department to stop defending the Defense of Marriage Act. In addition to almost everything else, we have been embarrassed on the world stage by what has to be regarded as the impotence of our President. He cannot call the Taliban and get our POW out without giving up 5 Taliban leaders. He cannot call the people in Syria and have his own. He can't call Sudan and tell the head of Sudan to stop the death sentence of a Christian woman whose crime is being Christian, who's married to an American citizen, who is just about to be lashed 100 times after the birth of her child in prison. What kind of people are these? And why can't we tell them the way that they should behave and be paid heed to? At another time, we could. In my book, America Last Best Hope, which was mentioned earlier, I appreciate it. There's a great story about Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt. Not a hero, I know, to a lot of conservatives, because it represents the progressive wing of the party. But he was a great man in many, many ways. When an American businessman was kidnapped by an Arab leader in North Africa named Rassouli, Perdicaris was the name of the businessman. Secretary of State John Hay reported it to President Roosevelt. Roosevelt thought, a minute, and ordered Hay to send the following telegram. He said, I want Perdicaris back. Here's the telegram. Perdicaris alive or Rassouli dead. That was the telegram sent by the United States. Perdicaris was returned in very short order. There's a lot to talk about in education. If I had 2 hours, I could start with it. But you know, there aren't very many people who might defer on education. But your next speaker is one on what he has done in the state of Louisiana. What has been done in New Orleans since the floods, since the hurricane, is remarkable, and it demonstrates what people can do with choice, with opportunity, and with real accountability. There's a lot to be said, a lot more to be done, but it is a great example. Let me just end with some advice, if you will, advice to our leadership and advice to the electorate. I already gave you the bumper sticker, keep your doctor, change your senator. Let me suggest one other as the father of 2 millennials. Get the millennial out of your basement. In case he's there staring at that Obama poster. Remember that part of Paul Ryan's speech where he talked about young people who are still back at home because they don't have any job, because they graduated from college. These things aren't funny, it's just a litany. It's so incredibly impressive because they're out of college, they owe a lot of money, and they're back in their room at home staring at the Obama poster saying, what happened to all that hope? What happened to all that dream? Anyway, we need to do so many things. There is so much work to do. We have it within the power of this party to lead me to come up with the sound policy prescriptions. The one thing I discovered when I became Secretary of Education, the single best piece of advice I got was from my wife, Elaine, who said, now that you're Secretary of Education, don't just stand there and make pronouncements. Go out and find out what you're talking about first. And I said, well, why should I be different from the other guys? She said, because you're the Secretary of Education, do your homework. I said, what do you want me to do? She said, go teach school. So I said, Elaine, I am the Secretary of Education of the United States. I don't do retail, I do wholesale. She, the daughter of a Vice President of Commercial Credit in Charlotte, said, like a good businessman's daughter would, do retail and you'll do better wholesale. So off I went to 130 schools and I learned retail. My 3rd visit was at the Emma Kahn Elementary School in Raleigh, North Carolina. Film crew and everything. grade class, taught third grade class, Washington seventh grade class, we talked about Federalist Papers, seventh grade class, talked about the Declaration. So I was teaching third grade class. Again, I asked if there were any questions. The boy put up his hand and said, Mr. Secretary, President Reagan really has jelly beans, and does he really pass them around? And I said, yes. And he said, are you part of the cover? And I said, the cover. That little girl leaned in and said, the cabinet. I said, young man, first of all, that little correction you just got from that young lady will be happening to you for the rest of the No matter how high you rise, you will still be getting it wrong. By your lights, you can always be improved. I said, yes, I'm in the cabinet, covered in the cabinet. The president has jelly beans, he's passed them around, and I've had a few. So the guy says, you've had more than a few. Now, I give you two things. I give you embarrassment, Secretary of Education, led the evening news in Raleigh. You can imagine, well, Ronald Reagan, Secretary of Education, got a surprise today from little Tommy Johnson. Anyway, fine. Second, I give you freedom. Can you imagine a Soviet Minister of Education going into a classroom, saying that and getting that response? Hey, Mr. Minister of Education, you drank all the vodka today? It just isn't going to happen. You know? The air of freedom doesn't blow there. The air of freedom blows here for as long as we're able to keep it. It's our country. It's up to us. It's a do-it-yourself enterprise. I don't have to tell anybody here. We are at a critical stage in the future of the country. As Shakespeare says, a few more blows like this, and we may be done. So let's have more blows like this. Let's get behind good men and good women in support of this great republic, this last best hope of earth, because it is indeed still the last best hope of earth. Thank you, North Carolinians. We're proud to be among you.